every single food dye and additive that is used in food in the United States has passed some series of examination. The vast majority of them, like through the fucking ringer, generations ago, and updates all the time. They consistently find that almost all food preservatives and dyes, some of the preservatives in high amounts, like nitrates and stuff found in prepackaged sausages and stuff, they're not ideal if you just eat sausages all the time. In moderation, they're fine. You see almost no effect or no effect at all. But some of that shit's not that great. But like food dyes, colorings, various additives, they're tested to absurdity. And it is just not empirically true to say two things. One, that they're that bad for you. And if they are bad for you, it's teeny tiny cost. Remember, the sun is a thermonuclear permanently exploding bomb that shits radiation on you. So if you're really concerned about food dyes, don't ever fucking go outside, because it literally is a thermonuclear bomb, a hydrogen bomb in the sky that's blasting you. And every time it hits your cells, some of them like had DNA damage. Like that's what a tan is. So putting that into context, pretty much almost all the food additives we have in the United States don't rise to the level of damage to you that the sun in regular quantities does. Maybe they're not ideal for your health in high doses, but the idea that they cause you to gain weight is very curious.
So why are some of those additives banned in other countries? I think Europe was one of those where the Fruit Loops ingredient was different in Europe as it was the United States. And people say, oh, that's because Europe understands the dangers of, like, why the variations between certain additives and random foods between countries?
Most of the banning of foods that occurs in modern, roughly democratic countries occurs because of politics. Most people have this idea that chemicals in food are killing us all and that they're bad. And that's an intuitive idea. There's actually a fallacy for it. It's called the naturalistic fallacy, thinking artificial things are categorically bad, thinking natural things are categorically good. It's just not true as a good heuristic. It's just not true to use that rule. Sometimes it's true. And a lot of ways of consuming food that are more natural in the sense of less processed are actually better for you than consuming processed foods. But the food processing by itself isn't a problem, because like whey protein is highly processed, but it's really good for your health and it's amazing. It's the fact that processing typically makes food super tasty and typically drives up the calories a ton and makes it so tasty that you just keep wanting to eat it and you eat too much of it. That's almost the entire reason why food processing causes all these health maladies, is because it just makes you fat because you just keep overeating and your calories get too high.
Is that the same
that's why
with the sugar, the fake sugar, right? That it tricks your brain into wanting more of it because it mimics sugar?
Nope. Artificial sweeteners have been tested over and over. They're insanely safe. They've been, again, beaten into the ground. And they don't seem to have that rebound effect in the vast, vast majority of people. But just regular sugar, when you get one slice of pie, what do you want? You want another fucking slice. And that's the real killer. Ultra tasty food that, I might add, people willingly eat. The reason food mega conglomerates make the shit is because you buy it. And I'm going to say something. I am not cutting CEOs and shit extra slack. There is a slightly higher incidence of psychopathy and sociopathy in elite leaders. Fact. You can look it up. A lot of them are Machiavellian people that are trying to rig any system they have exploitation to. But they're fucking smart. And they know they can't trick you too much because your dollar speaks. So they're going to try to figure out exactly what the fuck you want and get as close as possible to giving you that shit. And if tomorrow en masse, the American public wanted fucking healthy food, every food company would fucking pivot as fast as possible. Because like, if you ask the CEO of PepsiCo or something, could they also sell a bunch of potato chips and shit like that? Same company, huge mega conglomerate. Like, what is it about full sugar Pepsi and you selling it that you just get off on? He'd be like, what? Like, as soon as everyone wants diet soda, which is categorically healthier than regular soda, by the way, for almost everybody, they don't give a fuck. That's them retooling their factory, and 3 days later, it's a fucking diet soda factory. They don't care. And I'm saying that both a good way of like, they're not trying to poison you, and in a bad way of they don't care that what you care. And you are the ultimate arbiter of what goes in your body because you have dollars and you have a choice. Do I buy this? Do I buy that? And when enough people buy a bunch of junk food because it fucking tastes good, then what are food companies supposed to do? They sell you what you want. That's what they do. And so to answer your question about the European other countries, politically, a lot of people think that they're being poisoned by all these additives. And largely this is not the case. Sometimes it's the case, but very rarely. It used to be more the case back in the day. Nowadays, like very, very safe. But people have these preconceived notions. And they, through various political bodies and various expressions of their attitudes, will approve of politicians pushing the legislation through that makes them feel safer by banning various ingredients that have bad press. Happens all the time. And in Europe, people are substantially, on average, a little bit more left-leaning, a little bit more health conscious, in a kind of I don't want things to poison me sort of way. And they press their governments a bit more, both through indirect polling data and active lobbying efforts, to like keep them safer. And politicians, just like CEOs, are normally decent fucking people, but some larger than normal fraction of them are fucking sociopaths and psychopaths, etc. And lizard-like eyes that have no soul, they'll just do whatever the fuck gets them elected. And if everyone's like, get the poison out of our food, they're like, yeah, fuck the poisons, get them out. They don't care. They don't talk to toxicologists. They don't give a shit. Ban Red 40. Who gives a shit? And I have to say this because just to put this to people, it's all bullshit. It's all love and respect, all jokes. But at the same time, I'll throw a kernel in here. It baffles me when people who are anti-vaccine, anti the government regulating, anti the government pushing shit onto people, anti the government restricting people's liberties, anti the government telling you, like in the United States and many jurisdictions, that you are not allowed to purchase or consume an unpasteurized milk. You can't drink raw milk in much of the United States. And these people are vehemently against that, and maybe as well as they should be. The vaccine shit, I'm all fucking jab me up. I got all the jabs. I love that shit. I'll die on that hill. But sometimes they have really good points about all this other government overreach. And Europe is like no offense, Europeans, all love and respect, jokes. There's tons of great parts of Europe that don't do this. But on average, Europe is like just mildly exaggerating, a cesspool of government and regulatory overreach. And they pushed the COVID vaccine on every fucking body, minus a couple of exceptions. But like, you can't say like Europe had a less quote unquote progressive vaccine policy in the United States, right? Australia and New Zealand, they shut everything down. That horrible situation. Same like kind of culture. And so you're telling me that like you want freedom and all this shit. Fuck the vaccine. Dope. I feel that. I love that vibe. But then on food dyes, you're going to point to Europe and see they do it. Really? Why don't you do vaccines like them? Look, well, they're wrong about that. Well, maybe they're fucking wrong about food dyes too. And the thing is, it's not controversial that they're wrong about it. Just like next time you guys pick guests for a show, just pick just contact various professional societies of toxicologists in the United States, bring them on the channel. They're going to say all kinds of shit that just straight up sounds to most people like wacky. Like almost everything you eat in food is not actively or acutely poisoning you. And then we look at the metadata on what is actually causing the obesity epidemic. The overconsumption of super tasty foods that leads to excess calories over time, and you get fatter and fatter and fatter. And at some point, your fat cells say like, hey, we got it pretty good. And if you start undereating again, we're going to start screaming at you and making you hungrier to get us back to that old weight what we were. So once you gain weight, it's harder to lose it because your body's new settling point is what it's called. Its preference for its body weight, it goes up. And the fat cells never really die. They just shrink. But if you build enough up of them because you're overeating for years, when they shrink, they start bitching hormonally and they go, feed us, feed us, feed us. And you get really hungry and you start eating again. So once you gain a bunch of weight, your body likes to stay there. And look, you have habits now, and it's a real talk. You just like to eat really tasty food because it's so brutal to be like, all right, like chicken and broccoli for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 10 weeks straight. Everyone's like, and so people try, but the food environment, which is a great term, all the restaurants around you, all the food at the grocery store, all the stuff that your relatives bring when you're sick, it's a lot of it is ultra high calorie, ultra delicious, ultra convenient, ultra cheap. It's a recipe for obesity.